Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Keepin It Movin Podcast, episode 1. I am your host, Dr. John. I am a licensed physical therapist. And for our inaugural, is that the right term? Inaugural episode, we have a special guest here. It is my friend Ashley. Ashley, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, yes. My name is Ashley. I am a first year physical therapy student. So I'm really excited, a little bit nervous. I've never done a podcast before, so it's pretty fun.
That's okay. That's okay. Hey, you know what? We all got to start somewhere, and this is my first episode, and this is your first time being on a podcast, so we're kind of holding our hands into the sunset and just kind of doing our thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel honored. Thank you.
Yeah. Of course. But I really do appreciate you taking your time and being with me, for this day, just for the interview is awesome. Basically, the podcast today, we will be talking about some topics that Ashley has brought up if she wants to. And then also I have some topics that I would want to bring up. But Ashley, I just wanted to ask first, how did you even get to PT in the first place?
It was actually a little different story. So usually,
Sure.
I always knew I wanted to be in the medical field. My family is a medical field background.
Mm-hmm.
And at first I thought I wanted to do nursing, and I did like more volunteering, but then it wasn't like my calling. So then I kind of just chose, I loved like how the body moves, learning about the body,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously always helping people, number one answer. So
That is the de facto answer at the beginning.
right, I had to say it.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I, when in college, I kind of just chose kinesiology, not knowing that I wanted to do physical therapy. Most people did want to do physical therapy, and it was more like, I don't know, maybe I'll do something like in fitness. And that was actually my concentration. So once I graduated from with my undergrad degree, I started doing volunteering at Rancho Los Amigos Hospital.
Okay.
I kind of was interested in occupational therapy. And doing like volunteering there. I was in the neuro department. And then just kind of occupational therapy and physical therapy were right next door to each other. So I was like a little floater for volunteering. And I just fell in love with like the whole aspect of physical therapy, like teaching people how to walk and just like everything about it. So then I chose like, okay, I really do want to do this. So I had to go back to school and get like some prerequisites done. I got a job as a physical therapy aide, and it was just more like the experience and kind of exposing myself to what physical therapy is what like made me want to get into it and be able to help people in that way.
Awesome. I mean, it sounds like it's it was more gradual for you. Like,
yes.
Definitely. It was kind of like exposure therapy. You just kind of saw snippets of it, and it's like, wow, I kind of really want to do that. And kind of really. So, do you feel like it's your calling at this point?
I do. I really do. I've always had a calling with like learning about the body and everything. And I just feel like me being able to teach people how to move and just teach them at movements, basically, is going to be the way I can help others. So.
Perfect. Yeah. As far as like, I understand that you have some questions today. Is there one that you want to bring up right now? The question?
I guess my first question would be, why did you choose to become a physical therapist?
Why did I choose to become a PT? In a way, it's also fairly unique. It's actually kind of similar to yours. The weird part about it is when I first started undergrad, I was actually an art major. I don't know if you knew that, but I was an art major. I wanted to actually animate for Pixar, believe it or not. So my first 2 years of college, I was actually in the art department doing 3D modeling and fine art and studio art and all that stuff. And then after 2 years, I remember it was like a summer. And then I figured, wow, I kind of want to do medical field because partially in the beginning of it, it was more for stability. partially because me being Filipino, we were kind of like expected to be nurses on some level. And I didn't see myself as a nurse because one, it's really hard. And two, it was like I didn't want that pressure of I mean, I had so many family members who were nurses, and they were so such a high stress environment for nurses, especially if you work in a hospital, like they code and stuff like that. And I didn't see myself that way. So I picked PT. It's like, oh, okay. I mean, that sounds pretty good. I mean, I go to the gym, I work out, and kind of like you, the more I got exposed to it, the more I kind of just like, I can do this. Like, this is it, man. Like, this is what I'm going to be doing. This is what I'm going to be doing. So I kind of just get in there. I got in there. I got more and more information, and I actually started as a physical therapist assistant. I went to school for that first. That's a whole different story of why I started there. Basically, I started there, and then I applied for the doctorate program. And then right after the PTA program, the physical therapist assistant program, I was able to get into DPT, and pretty much the rest is history. So, and I've been a DPT for several years now at this point. Yeah, that's basically how I got in, pretty much. Yeah, there's a whole saga to it, but it's not about me. It's about you today.
The Cliff Notes.
that was the Cliff Notes. That's basically the Cliff Notes. Correct. Yeah. Is there any other ones that you wanted to ask? Because I have a couple as well.
Maybe what was your PT school experience like?
So my PT school experience was awesome. I can only imagine how different it is for you guys nowadays, because that's actually one of my questions for you later. So my PT experience was awesome. It was different to most people in that class simply because I was a PTA prior, and I had experience as a physical therapist assistant. So parts of the PT school I already went through, basically. Like anatomy was one of them. Basically, like your first year and a half was similar to what you would do to a PTA school. And then after like the year and a quarter, year and a half, that's when it really changes. It really digresses to like the DPT part of it. So for me, I felt like I was already experienced part of it. Like I had a preview, you know? So to me, it was pretty awesome. But how about you? How is your experience right now in PT school? That's the first year, right?
Yes. So
how was the first year for you?
It's been awesome. We just finished our last term in December. So tomorrow I'm going back for my second term.
Nice.
So I'm nervous because it's a fresh start, but it's also not easy. And I didn't think PT school was going to be like a breeze. It's a whole different ball game.
Compared to what? A whole different ball game compared
undergrad.
to what? Funnily enough, I was going to ask you about that. What's the main difference between like undergrad and going into graduate school?
I think it's just kind of learning the different study habits that you need to develop, and just like what works for you, because it's not going to work for everyone else. If like in undergrad, you can kind of, I know like getting into PT school, you obviously had to have really good grades. It wasn't like you didn't have to have like those good grades, but it's not like it's in PT school. I feel like there's no competition in my cohort, or like as far as like my school, we just kind of want all of us to pass together, but it's like developing your study group, your study habits, how you can learn from your teacher, even kind of developing those connections with your instructors and everything. And it's all new information that does blend together, but it's so in depth, and like thinking like, how am I going to apply this as a physical therapist, as like a first year learning all this? Like it seems like so big picture, but it all just kind of, what I've known now is like, it's like building blocks, like just learning like the foundation. And that's super important. And just being able to like, I'm like, okay, I learned everything about the foot a couple months ago, and how am I going to be able to apply it later? Like, it's just like remembering and I know it takes practice, but this is like it. Like this is like I feel like it's like the final, not the end game, but just like I'm training, and you're in that training style. It's just not style, but like session, I guess. So it's
You're
different.
in your Rocky montage, like training session. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I have the tiger in the background, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And even with like my background with undergrad, it was more,
Mhm.
I knew that I wanted to go to school, like further my education.
Mhm.
And I didn't know what I wanted to do with that. It's
Mhm.
just like undergrad was more like unknown and just figure out who I am and what I like. But now it's like, okay, this is it. And this is the end game type of thing. So,
Right.
but,
Yeah. Because did you always want to have not specifically PT, but an advanced degree? Is that what you wanted? So was that personally for you, or like a family thing that they wanted you to have a doctorate, master's, anything like that, or was that mainly for you?
mainly for me. My mom did get her master's degree.
Mm-hmm.
So and then my dad was, it's like a completely different like education history, but they've always taught me and my siblings like school is very important. Education is what what you have, and no one could really take that away from you.
Right.
So we've always kind of grown up like that, and I knew that I wanted to get, I guess, not the highest education, because I'm sure it's just, for me, it's not about like the money or like the um the status. It's more like I want to be happy, and if this is what I need to go through to be able
Mm-hmm.
to help people and be successful in being happy, like that's what my definition of success is, um
Right.
then that's it, so.
No, yeah, that's a big one, because uh, I always ask myself that is like, what really is your metric for success?
Mhm.
And it's really not about money, like you said. It's really not about that, right? It's really not about the prestige of it or whatever. Because most of the time, I don't even ask people to call me doctor.
Yeah.
I don't even ask. I don't even ask that. Like, just But the fact is that what comes with the grad school part of it is the knowledge, right?
Mhm.
And the freedom. The freedom is the big one,
Mhm.
because you can literally go any single way that you want to at this point. Like, the world is your oyster. It's basically what that is, right? It's like the world is your oyster, and then you do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes.
So, when you were talking about the difference between the undergrad and PT school,
Mhm.
The interesting part of it is the studying part of it, right? What was the difference between your studying before, like your study habits from undergrad, and then your study habits in PT school? How does that shaped or changed for you?
I think I'm still figuring it out, especially for like grad school.
Mm-hmm.
But I know undergrad, I was working, not full time, but I had a job,
Mm-hmm.
and I was living like in the dorms and everything, and I felt like I could study for a couple hours and understand the topic. Not saying it was like super easy, the classes, but it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't as time consuming and um like as hard to grasp as
Mm-hmm.
compared to like to graduate school, like that.
Yeah.
This is like the real deal. You like actually have to either like read the book or just kind of go over it multiple times, write it out. It's just developing. I think in undergrad I just kind of not skid, like not, what's the word I'm looking for,
Coasting.
yeah, like I coasted sometimes.
Yeah.
And here it's like, no, you gotta go, or else you're gonna get
There's no
left
such thing.
behind. Yeah.
There is no
Yes.
such thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So just, it's still, even now I'm like taking tips. I'm like, what do you do? Like, how do you understand this topic?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like just even now as I'm older as well, is like
Mm-hmm.
just knowing what works for me, and being able to be more efficient than just like coasting. Like I
Right.
need to be able to handle all these different classes and understand them, because later on there, it's not like I could just forget about it. Like I'm not taking like chemistry or anything, or You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
No, I completely get what you mean.
Yeah.
What have you learned as far as new ways of learning for you? Or has that gotten you closer to like figuring out how you learn stuff? Has that gotten you closer?
Yeah. I think I used to not ever study with people, like study groups or anything. But I've definitely learned that I need to be able to talk it out. And sometimes the way things stick in my brain is so different. Like even me explaining something to someone might not make sense to them, but it makes sense to me. And even like if I'm able to be like, okay, is this correct? Or just kind of bouncing off ideas of people that are like in the same level as me is like what has helped me a lot. I've also learned like I'm a kinesthetic learner, so I have to hear it, write it, like actually
be involved in the learning process itself, like actively.
Yeah, like active learning is like number one thing I think I've learned. I used to be such a passive learner, like I've just listened to the lecture and not really look at it again. But now it's like, no, you have to take this information and be able to put it in a way to where you understand it. And it might not work for everyone else, but like it's just you developing the way it's going to stick in your brain or how you can recall it again or even understand the topic.
Yeah, that I actually 100% agree with you. And the fact that you actually recognize that is a huge thing, because what happens is, at least from what I've seen before, once that's the stepping stone for you to figuring out your own style of therapy. Because once you figure out how you learn, you actually absorb information differently, correct?
Yeah.
So when you absorb information differently, your understanding is like baseline. You have a baseline, but you understand it a little bit differently than other people, which translates to you applying it differently in the future when you become a physical therapist. Do you see what I'm saying? So if you learn how that's why our conversations before we've talked about like, you need to learn how you learn. It's because once you learn how you learn, which is redundant, I know. Once you learn how you learn, you also learn how you interpret. And once you learn how to interpret, you also learn how to apply. So your unique perspective will change how you do your therapy in the future, at least from my experience. Because it was similar for me. Until I hit grad school, I was just like you. I was like, okay, cool. I can do undergrad. Awesome. And then you get to grad school, and then, like you said, it's not even the same realm, you know? Literally, like your first week in grad school is like a whole month worth of in undergrad, right? So that hit me hard in the face, smacked me in the face, you know? So I had to like really figure out how my brain worked. And once you figure out how your brain works, you translate information differently. And then once you really embrace how your brain works, it actually really changes how you approach therapy. That's how you end up with people who are like really manual based therapists or like neurotherapists or orthotherapists and all that stuff, because you know because they translate the same information in a different way. Like their output is different, you know what I mean? So as a first year, that's great that you actually recognize that, because there are people who are still trying to figure that out even like past second year, third year, you know what I mean? They're passing the test, awesome, but they're not figuring out that that's actually really important to know that, you know? So that's basically when you stick it down.
So how would you say like a regular like session with a patient would go for you, and like how does that
for myself? Okay. Are you talking about an evaluation or like a normal follow-up?
Let's go with evaluation.
Okay. Yeah, that's honestly that's going to be one of the biggest hurdles for you as a student. Because what the evaluation, because you have experiences with being a personal trainer, like you said, and a physical therapist aide, right? So the actual follow-ups won't be as big of a deal for you because you've done them, you know, like you've executed those things. The issue is the biggest hurdle that I see for my students that I've seen is the transition from changing that mentality of student to therapist, because that's the biggest thing when it comes to evaluations, right?
Yeah.
So I'm at this point, I have enough experience where I'm really comfortable that I'm a therapist. I don't have a shred of being a student, quote unquote, it's in my periphery now.
Yeah.
So once you get in and you feel like you're a therapist, your patient literally will feel that from you. A lot of patients will be able to call that you're a student. You know what I mean? Like just the way you talk and stuff like that. So for me, this is a really roundabout way of answering it. For me, a normal session would be the second that patient that I know I'm going to see that patient. And if I was in a clinic, the second that I know that I'm going to be seeing that patient, I already watched them. That before I even talk to them, that's how a session already starts for me. If I have time and I saw them walk in, I'm already seeing their body language. I'm already seeing, if I know the body part, I'm already observing the body part. Because the thing is, once they see a therapist, right, they'll change inadvertently. Like even if they didn't want to change, they'll change regardless. Yeah.
Because they know they're being watched.
They know they're being watched, and they know that you're a doctor. You know, like white coat syndrome is an actual thing. You know, like people's blood pressure raises and stuff like that. People get nervous. People get they blank out sometimes. They'll fib sometimes. Yada 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 yada. So my advice for new PTs is that if you know that somebody's coming in, you watch them right away. Because you'll get a sense of who they are just by like seeing how they walk and talk to the staff, the front staff, the other people around them, yada yada. You know, they're reclusive, the stuff like that, because that's an important thing. So now let's move on to like when they meet me, right? Of course, I introduce myself. Hello, hi, my name is John. I'm your physical therapist. I don't even usually say Dr. John when I talk to them, but I'm your physical therapist today. Yada yada. Like, of course, there are times where you kind of need to remind them, like, yeah, I'm a doctor. So, you know, but the biggest thing, I've had to develop this. The biggest thing for me is I look them in the eye almost the entire time that I talk to them. So the issue with students is that they're trying to jot every note down. So they're not actually looking at the person.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're looking at their documentation.
Yeah.
Which I still do. Like I talk to them about, like I make it a point to look them in the eye. Because one, that shows that you're listening. Right? And what you have to understand is that most patients, when they come in, they've had other medical procedures done, likely. And most of the time, you know, they're going for a quick checkup. It's not a lot of interaction with the medical professional, which is not their fault, which is not the patient's fault either. It's just how it is, right?
Yeah.
In our case, we're with them for like an hour.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a completely different situation inherently. So you want to make it, you want to show that that's a completely different situation inherently.
Yeah.
Because the people that are coming in are usually in pain, usually in their some of their most vulnerable states, right? They want to recover, and you looking them in the eye or making it a point that you look them in the eye. It's a gigantic thing for a patient, because they know you're listening, which means that it gives buy-in. Buy-in is a gigantic thing, right? So I make it a point that I talk to them and I look them in the eye. I do active listening. Do you know what active listening is?
I guess. So kind of like, go ahead and explain.
No. So active listening, I always also make it a point with my students as well to learn about active listening. It's essentially because you're listening to them intently. Most of the time, I will know all your information that you just told me in my head. I don't have to type it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I know that this happened at this date. This is what happened. This is what you felt. This is what I can recite all of the information back to them without writing anything.
Yeah.
If you do that, that's active listening. because you actually listen, like you know what they said and you absorbed what they said, and then the patient sees that, and then now they trust you.
Yeah.
Because you're not pushing them away. You're not a number. They're a person. Then you consider them as a person, which is very important. So yeah, I do that. The evaluation, I do all the testing, all the other stuff. I do my treatments, but I make it a point where if I can help their main issue that day, I will make it a point to minimize that main issue as much as I can.
Okay.
And then I don't give a lot of exercises the first day. Because one, human nature, nobody, if you give them 6 exercises, they're not going to do them for sure. Guaranteed they will not do it, because it's just human nature. You gave them homework, and most of them are adults.
Yeah.
They're not going to have busy lives. But if you can find a way to incorporate the exercises into their daily lives.
Yeah.
So an example would be like if I'm working on posture, right? Okay, fair enough. This is all you got to do. These 2 things.
Mm-hmm.
Do these, let's say, while you're at the computer.
Yeah.
Don't even worry about it if you can't do it at the end of the night, whatever. Just do them while you're at the computer. Once you're reminded, do them. And then do that. You're creating a habit. You're creating, you're pushing.
Changing.
Yes, you're initiating the change.
Mm-hmm.
And then the more they come in, the more they become trusting of you, because once they see results, you get the buy-in, you get the results with them, they trust you more, and it kind of goes in a cycle. So they trust you more, they do the buy-in, you give them stuff, they do more of it, they get more results, they come in, they give you more buy-in. Do you see what I'm saying? So now you created an ecosystem.
Yeah, and I like what you said, that that first day you try to give them the most like relief of the number one thing they came in for, because do you think that kind of helps with like success rate of them coming back?
Coming back as in like being compliant with the sessions? Yeah. Of course. Because think of it this way, right? If you come in, if they come in, and your intent is to focus on exercises, just give them the exercises and just hope that it works for them. Right. One, you took away the individuality of that person now. Right. Because I understand sometimes that you kind of have to do that if you're short on time. That happens, but I make it a point where my focus is, if I can change that person's status today, I win. I win if they win. That's my goal. Yeah. My goal is to not give you a set amount of exercises. My goal is to help you as much as I can today. If I can change even 10% of it, and then you notice that 10% change, now you're invested. Yeah. Because we're both invested now, So that, to me, at least, the compliance becomes better when your focus is to help them change even a little bit, not a lot. We're not miracle workers. If they've had a chronic pain for 20 years, you're not going to take that away the first day. You know what I mean? So nobody's a miracle worker. Even pills don't do that. So your goal is to change them the first 10. Like if you can change them 10% that day, and they notice that, at least from my experience, the compliance is much better. I mean, of course, I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. There are days where I can't change them at all. It just happens, But coming from that lens, at least for me, is the most effective. What do you think?
I think that's really interesting, just because with the experience I've had, definitely seeing like different types of therapists and just sometimes, or even like my own personal experience, feeling like you're not being heard, or it's like your doctor sent you in for a lower back pain, but I'm going to do something completely different. And the person's like, but I really do have like that, like a kink in my back or something. And seeing some therapists try to like what is it, kind of brush by, but no, this is really your I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
I think I know what you're saying. It's basically what you're saying is that sometimes in our therapy world, there are certain therapists sometimes where they kind of, when the patient brings up an information, they already feel like they know what's happening with that patient and they don't really consider. So it's a little bit dismissive of the information. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, exactly.
A little bit dismissive. To be fair, we are trained to know what's happening with a patient.
Yeah.
And sometimes the information that patients say is irrelevant. And if it is, then we can ignore that if it doesn't specifically relate to what we're trying to treat. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, it is also important, at least for me, to acknowledge the fact that they're saying that.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I understand. Okay. So, like if let's say a patient said something completely outrageous, fair enough.
Yeah.
We may consider if it comes up.
Yeah.
You know, like that's a completely different say. Like, no, it's not that. It's this. Mm-hmm. See the tone is different, right?
Yeah.
So like we may consider if that is the case, we will consider that and then we will apply it to the thing. Okay. Currently right now, I believe that this is the most effective plan. We'll stick with it. We'll give it some time. And if we need to tweak it, we'll tweak it. And then we'll consider what you just said.
Yeah.
See the difference in tone?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's more like a collaborative thing, right? With the patient and the physical therapist.
It definitely can be. It definitely can be.
Okay.
So generally speaking, yes, it has to be a collaborative thing because if you're really considering the patient, sure. Right. Mm-hmm. But you also have to understand that as a therapist, you're the one who leads that. Mm-hmm. Right. So what that means is that you can be collaborative, and that's correct. But it's also very easy to almost give too much of the dictation for the treatment to the patient. If you're being collaborative. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because you have to understand that you are getting an advanced degree for a reason. You are the person that person looks up to lead. Mm-hmm. To lead the treatment, to lead your prognosis, to lead whatever they need to do to get better. So you can definitely consider what they say. You can collaborate with them, see what works for them better. Exercises, how their pain tolerance is, their lifestyle, all that stuff. Of course, you're going to have to collaborate. But it's a slippery slope if you're always just relying on collaboration. Yeah. Okay. Does that make sense?
It does a lot.
Yeah. So just but that kind of comes with confidence of being a therapist, though. So once you become... Right now, of course, you're in a student mode, and that's hard to just be like, oh, I'm leading this whole thing. But once you get there, you'll get there for sure.
Yeah. That's like the scary part. It's like, how am I going to lead this and just like completely change someone in one session? Not completely, but just like be able to really help them. And it just seems like such a like far out thought, but it's nice to hear like it's possible.
It is. It is. I'm definitely not the best therapist out there. Not even close. Right. But the thing is, you definitely have the capability of changing somebody's life, whether you know it or not, whether you know it or not right now, you know. What else are you nervous about, like transitioning into PT? Like being a physical therapist? I
think you've touched up on it, just like having the confidence of leading someone. Confident, just it's a little scary. Like people trust you and they're putting like their health in you. So it's like just having that that type of responsibility. It's responsibility as well as like confidence and just being able to help people. I don't know. Yeah.
The responsibility part is the heavy one it was heavy for me. It still is heavy for me. And the reality is it doesn't go away, but it becomes tolerable. The feeling of the responsibility for it, because it weighs on you, you know?
Yeah.
Every patient that walks through the door of any clinic that you're working with, they're looking to you for relief or improvement or whatever their goal is, right? And that is heavy. And the reality is it kind of doesn't go away. But it becomes tolerable the more the confidence thing. And really, you can't really teach the confidence part. You kind of just have to do it, you know, unfortunately.
And experience too.
Experience, all that stuff. So really, you know, you'll get there. You will get there. And the thing is, like, from what I know from you, you're very diligent and you'll be just fine. You will be just fine. Trust me. Is there any other question that you have for me?
I guess one that, since we kind of talked about like a regular session, do you have like one like success story kind of that you're like, damn,
did I cling on to?
Yeah.
Did I cling on to?
Changed or something. Yeah.
That changed me. The second day you said that this is the one that I always refer back to. That made me know that this was what I wanted to do.
Okay.
It wasn't even as a doctor. It wasn't even as a physical therapist. It was when I was a student in physical therapist assistant school.
Okay.
Yeah. I had a patient, younger man, had a bad accident. He was around my age at that time, and he wasn't motivated because imagine you were a young man, completely normal one day, and then the next day you're not. You know, could barely get out of the bed, couldn't even walk, all that stuff. And he was traumatized, and admitted, like, of course, understandably so, that he was traumatized, right? And then I was tasked as a student to work with this guy. And this is like one of the most complicated things I've seen as a student, as a physical therapist assistant student. And it's like, oh, what am I going to do with this? This is crazy.
Yeah.
And I started with listening to him. I started with just hearing him out. And I started with just relating to him like, dude, I get it, man. Like, I'm around your age, so I get it, like, why you're frustrated. And he didn't like working with other people before that. And somehow, some way, I was able to break through with him. And I was in that rotation for a while. And I think, how long did it take? Like 5 weeks. I worked with him almost every single day. And he was walking home.
Wow. That's crazy.
It was nuts. It was nuts. It was like, whoa. So it was like, I wasn't all the factor there, but I definitely contributed to the fact that this dude is going home today because of partially me.
Yeah.
And this is pretty awesome, man. Like, all the stuff that you learned, I pulled all the tricks that I learned at that point in time. And you got to apply that. And that's kind of the joy of it. Like, whatever you're learning right now, once you're able to apply that, it becomes really satisfying and gratifying. Yeah.
That's awesome.
How about you? Have you had any experiences? Because you've worked with patients before. Or even in personal training. Like, have you had an experience like that before?
I feel so. If I were to just like first thing that pops up in my brain, it was definitely in Rancho, the hospital that I was volunteering, and as a volunteer, we kind of just got to observe. But I got lucky. I got really close to one of the physical therapists, and they were very like, not hands-on because I couldn't really touch them, but it was more like, I really want you to watch this. If you have any questions, let me know. So it was a patient who was younger, I think like in his 40s, and he had a stroke, couldn't walk. He couldn't use his left side. So just seeing, and that was like really the first time I was exposed to seeing someone not be able to use their legs or their hands, and just seeing like that progress. Same thing, just being able to see how the therapist just gradually help them walk again, with like a normal, not completely normal gait, but just little by little was more, that's what kind of caught my eye as well, as just the gradual
progress.
Yes. Was really amazing. And then I just was hooked ever since, and I've seen a lot of crazy stuff, but it's like, hey, like I can do that. That's cool.
Well, the thing is, yes, you can do that, and yes, you will be doing that. That's the thing. Like, inevitably, I mean, barring that you don't pass your boards, which you will, I'm sure. Barring that you don't pass your boards, really, that's what you're going to be doing, or what you can be doing for the rest of your life. You know, that's kind of the point, right?
Yeah.
So, what advice would you give someone who would be watching this if they were in undergrad right now, figuring out what they want to do? What advice would you give them if they want to go to a grad school? What advice
like
would you
any
give
grad? Well, if there was
anything, because like, I think we have a baseline of like if somebody's undergrad to grad school.
Yeah.
Like I think there's a baseline connection between that, regardless of what grad school you want to go to, right? So
yeah, I think just getting experience. Like, don't just pick a school or pick a topic because you think you're gonna get like good money for it. Like, find that passion that you have. Like, find that that you can, that you could do this for the rest of your life, and you can always change your career, but it's like, just expose yourself, put yourself out there, try new things, kind of learn what you like, what you don't like, and just before you, because grad school is expensive, so it's like, know that
you are correct.
Know that this is what you want to do, and
yes, that is a big point of topic for sure.
Yeah.
No, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Continue.
No. Yeah. So just get experience. Know yourself before you go into like debt or go into school for 4 years and you're like, did I even like this in the beginning? Like, know that this is it. Like, or even like, I'm super interested in this and I want to learn about it. And I personally think like, I'm always gonna love learning. So it's like, even after school, like PT school, I know like every day at work I'll be challenged, or just like I can take continuing education classes. And so yeah, so just kind of find your passion. I'd say get experience, talk to people. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I agree with you. The biggest thing that I could put with that is just know that grad school is a different kind of commitment. Because college, sure, it's accessible. People still choose to go to college. You don't have to go to college, but college can be more accessible than most places, right? The issue is if you're choosing to go to grad school, you know that you're committed there.
Yeah.
You are choosing that 100% of the way. Sorry.
Yeah.
100% of the way, you are choosing grad school.
Yeah.
Like you said, because if you are going to choose the grad school, you need to know that you like it first. Yeah. And the reality is, money is a big one. Like you said, it is not cheap. Also, the fact is, do you even like studying?
Yeah.
Like, do you even like the fact that you need to be studying? Most grad schools, at least, literally half your day is studying, and the other half is thinking about studying. And and when you're sleeping, you're still thinking about studying while you're sleeping.
You're dreaming about it.
You're dreaming about it. You're literally you're Doctor Strange in the astral projection, moving the pages in your brain. You know what I'm saying? So, that alone should be considered, because are you willing to literally study every single day that hard? Right? Exactly. That's a consideration, because people can, like you said, go to college, and yes, you need to study for college. But the fact is, in college, you are taking prerequisites in different categories, right? When you go to grad school, everything that you learn is related to one thing. Everything.
Yeah.
So there's literally no throwaway part. In grad school, you can sometimes go to or in undergrad, sorry, you can take classes there as an elective, make it easy for you. In grad school, there's no such thing. You know? So when you're considering going to grad school, do you even like studying? The money, the commitment, and also if you are going to do grad school, like you said, do you even want to do it for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
For the most part. Because if you're great, if you want to do whatever you want, you can pick any sort of grad school subject that you want. But once you get to that point, you're there. You are there.
Yeah.
And there's no turning back at that point. You committed.
No.
You know, it's like getting a tattoo, right? So
yeah.
I certainly didn't have all the means to just retry over and over. If I was there, like that was it. I'm certainly not rich enough to like retry again somewhere else, you know? So yeah, that's a big one. Do you have anything else to add to that?
I think also just knowing that like in grad school, you're not going to be coddled. You're there.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah. You're there. Even our instructors are like, I don't need to take attendance because you're here because you want to be here. You're here because you need to be here. If you miss a day or even like, if you're just spacing out for 30 minutes, you're going to be like, what just happened? Like, so it's just, you have to have like that determination, that drive, that want, because no one's gonna just, like we talked about, you're not gonna be able to just coast through it. It's you're here and you gotta buckle in, or else you're just gonna get left behind. And what are you doing? Why are you here?
The best analogy I heard is that it's like drinking it's like drinking water through a fire hose.
Yeah.
All that information is just at you, and you're trying to keep up with it, but you just can't, because unless you put in the work, you just can't. Yeah. Because it's so much information in such little time, and they don't care if you get it or not. That's all up to you. Like you said, like there's no safety rails. There's no safety. And the thing is, what most people don't realize is that, at least from what I've heard, grad schools, especially in the medical field, if you go to a medical related grad school, your standards for failing are not the same as undergrad. If you get a 75 in undergrad, you're fine. If you get a 75 in grad school, they will kick you out. That is not a thing. Yeah. You know, the lowest from what I remember, like our lowest was like supposed to be 83 or something, and that's really, really low. Yeah. You know, you're not supposed to even get to that point, and you're like in academic probation at that point. So just be aware for those who are watching this, and if you want to do grad school, you need to consider everything that Ashley has said. For sure, because she's the one in it right now, so she knows and all that stuff. Okay. There you go. Anything else that you want to add?
I don't think so. Okay. I think also maybe like burnout, just because like even now,
that's a big one.
Yeah, like even now finishing like the last term, and I had like a 2.5 week break. I definitely felt it at the end. It was just, you're learning so much, and you're like the 15th week, you're like, I'm looking at these words, but they're not words. They're just there.
It's just like, just scrambling into ether, just moving around.
Yeah.
Fair enough. How do you deal with it? How do you deal with the feeling of burnout? How do you deal with that?
I feel like I'm not, obviously everyone's stressed and everyone handles stress differently. But I try to kind of take things one thing at a time, because if I'm like overwhelmed, like say literally finals week, I had 5 tests in 5 days. So it was just not letting it drown me. Like, even though sometimes throughout the whole semester, I feel like I'm just like up there trying to breathe for air. But just like not letting it overwhelm me. Definitely just knowing that everyone else feels the same. And yeah, you have like that, you have to get a good grade, but I feel like you don't need to get an A, like you don't have to get the highest grade, type of thing. That's how I pursued it. It was, or like took it, because I knew that like I'm smart, I'm here for a reason, I'm learning, I'm studying. If I have questions, or like in the beginning, I didn't grasp the concept, I would ask questions to understand it. So just kind of always make sure you like don't let it drown you, don't let it overwhelm you, because then that's when like the burnout really happens, and you can't really do anything about it once you're there. It's just more taking the things little by little.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay. Hey, that's fair. That makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense, and it is important, actually. If I may, like I if I was going to give you some advice as far as like burnout goes, we all, I mean, you know, I experience it too. Everybody does, right? I'm not a special person in that sense. The way I figured out burnout was also me. That was part of me knowing how I learned, because I knew I can't do all-nighters. I knew I can't go past 3 hours of studying, because once I hit a wall, once I hit 3 hours, that's my wall. Any information, like you were just saying, all those words don't make sense to me at this point. Right. So the way I dealt with it was like, I knew those parameters first. I knew my limits. And the goal is to not go past the limits. So once you go past the limits, that's when burnout happens. Right? Because you're pushing yourself so hard that your mind and your body, and you're just resisting it, so that you get fatigue. Fatigue still happens, sure, but it's more manageable when you know your limits.
Yeah. Or when to stop, kind of.
Or when to stop. So for people in your position who are going to doctorate school or master's school, you get to that point because, one, you are persistent and you are hardworking, and you know what it takes to commit to that. The funny part is that when you're in that position, you have the opposite of what most people have to deal with, which is you go too much. Most people, you have to motivate them to start. But when you're in a grad school, that's not your issue. Your issue is stopping, not starting. Right? So you have to figure, you have to realize is that you can keep going, but there's a point of diminishing returns. And if you keep going at a diminishing returns, one, you're not nearly as efficient, because you were talking about how much you wanted to be as efficient, right? Yeah. You're not nearly as efficient. And two, you are actually, it's kind of a detriment to you. You can put all the hours you want, but at some point it becomes detrimental to you, and you're actually sliding backwards instead of moving forwards. That being said, I don't know how you are. I certainly know that if I go 4 hours of studying, I don't know anything anymore. So the way I dealt with that is knowing my limits first. And then when I figured out my limits, I put a hard stop at any on all of those things. So let's say I reach a 3 hour limit, and I start, even if I don't know what the time is, I start noticing that I'm not absorbing the information. I had to reread a couple paragraphs. Okay, I'm done. I need to stop now. Yeah. I'm good. And then I need to take a break. My breaks usually was like I walk around, or if it was late at night, I would just sleep and just wake up super early in the morning, because my brain is refreshed at that point. It gave you time to absorb, and then you can absorb more information afterwards. Yeah. So that was my way of dealing with burnout, was knowing my limits and then sticking with the limits that I know of. You know, so figure out your limits first. Because like you said, at some point it becomes really overwhelming, and that doesn't go away, but you have more capacity to absorb it. Right. So I don't know. I don't know if that's helpful at all for you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think I know my limits as well, but sometimes I feel like
Hmm.
I get guilty for taking breaks, or like if I
Hmm.
see my friends and they're like, "Did you study this?" I'm like, "No, I haven't." So like you're just like, "I don't deserve a break. I haven't done that yet."
Why do you
So
feel like you don't deserve a break? Because your friends did it?
it's just more like I think it's always going to be like that comparing, like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you did this, so I haven't done it either." So it's just like sometimes I'm like I feel guilty if I do take a break because I didn't finish chapter 2. So it's just
Hmm.
remembering like everyone's at their own pace and like
That's a big
don't
one. Yeah.
yeah, don't compare yourself.
Do you feel like you're comparing yourself more in grad school than in undergrad to other people?
Yeah. Actually, I would say it's like in the middle just because
Hmm.
I think in grad school everyone went through similar things as you to get there.
Hmm.
So now we're all in the same spot. It's like it doesn't matter what if as long as you passed and you did the best you can. But
Hmm.
like in undergrad, I know like it was more like you need to get an A in this chemistry class or else
Hmm.
you're not going to be able to get in. So it was like different stress levels as well as different comparing.
Hmm.
But in grad school I'd say everyone's equal. You shouldn't feel like you don't deserve to be there because you do. You were there for a reason.
Hmm.
So I think just remembering that, but sometimes it's easy to forget because
Right. No,
yeah.
trust me. I totally understand what you're saying. And
Yeah.
as a as a grad school student,
Mhm.
like you brought up the topic of stress, because that's completely different from burnout, right? Burnout, you're just fatigued like crazy, and then you could because you were stressed. So how do you deal with this the normal everyday day to day stress in that sense? How do you deal with that?
I'm still trying to figure that out.
Fair enough. That's an honest answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think just doing things that make me happy, like working out, make sure I do things that like I remember that I'm a human and I'm not just like a learning machine.
You know, like,
Um
yeah.
yeah. So definitely taking time for myself,
Hmm.
taking things like slower because like personally I know it takes me a while to understand things or it takes me a while to like fully be able to grasp it and be able to like teach others. So it's just kind of understanding um how you learn and how you deal with things. But yeah, just even all the advice I've had, it's like remember that you need time for yourself.
Hmm.
You get in this little bubble, and even now, like during break, it's like all of our friends, like my school friends, we haven't
Hmm.
really talked as much as before. Like before, it's like every single day you're talking to these people because they're experiencing the same things as you,
Hmm.
and they obviously like they see you in your low points and your high points, and you see them too. But yeah, just remembering that you're not alone and you're human and to take breaks.
Great. Yeah, I agree. I agree. That's great. And thank you for sharing that. Actually, that's good. Uh,
How do you deal with stress or
oh. It's a very similar. It's a very similar way that you look at it. Actually, um, my brain works in analogies. So, like the analogy that works for me is that I'm a battery, right? So think of it as a battery. If I was in your position in grad school when I was in position, the schooling part of it drains the battery. So for you to recharge, you need to add things to actually go up to make it go up.
Mhm.
Gym, uh, significant other, friends, video games. To me, I'm like a giant gamer, so I play games. YouTube, watching YouTube, or like watching Netflix or whatever. Those are the things that raise the charge for you,
Yeah.
right? So you
Yeah.
have to realize that you have a finite amount of stress coping mechanism or like energy or whatever you want to call it. So school will do this. Everything else has to do this, has to compensate for that, you
Yeah.
know? So
Yeah.
because you're so committed to the school, it'll drain. And if you don't do the other stuff, it just stays here.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So
No, for sure.
yeah.
And
So
then you're burnt out.
and you just boom, and then your battery, you just throw it away the battery because you're super burnt out at that point, right?
Yeah.
So I like to think of it as like I'm a battery, and then you just plug in stuff to charge you up, essentially.
Yeah.
Those are very important. And if you are in grad school, at least what Ashley is saying, I agree with for sure, is that you need to realize that taking a break is okay. It's okay.
Don't feel guilty, even though sometimes you might.
Don't need to feel. Yeah, you don't need to feel. No, to be fair, there is a point where it becomes guilty worthy when you're just not doing your work, right?
Yeah.
But if you are doing your work and you're doing your due diligence, those breaks kind of come with the territory. It's like it's like the tax. So you pay a price and then there's a tax part of it. The tax part of it is the break. It still comes with it. That's part of the whole thing. Is the break. So you shouldn't feel guilty of realizing, like what Ashley is saying, is that you're human and that breaks are essential, and your body needs time to recharge. And as a human, you are not one dimensional. You are a lot of dimensions. But if you are in grad school or trying to go to grad school, the dimensions just skew a little bit because a lot of your dimension is school, but there's still parts of you that needs to be attended to. Makes sense, right? So, that's how I deal with the whole stress. It's just knowing the fact that everything drains you. You need something to plug it back up.
That's a perfect way to put it.
That's basically what it is. Yeah. So, what is the biggest difference between, because you have experience as a personal trainer and in going into PT, right? What is the biggest difference that you've seen between the two worlds for you?
So actually with like personal training, I absolutely loved it. It kind of put me in that position where people come to me because they seek a service and they know that I'm good at it and I'm that professional that's going to be able to help them.
Right.
And it kind of put me in that leadership position because I could say like it, so being able to help people and guide them and teach them, I think it's definitely helping me in my career, giving me that confidence of like, oh, I know what I'm talking about. Obviously you have to do your research and I'm going to school for physical therapy, so it's like I'm gonna know exactly what I'm saying to patients, but just like with like training sessions, it definitely gave me confidence. And I think that's what I took out of it. And I absolutely like grateful for the opportunity. But I also think with my physical therapy background, I was able to implement that as a personal trainer.
Oh, okay.
So I did physical therapy first, and then I did personal training, just really recent actually. So being able to like to see what I apply what I learned as a physical therapy aide as a personal trainer was very helpful because it does go hand in hand. Like people come to you because they want something or they want a service or they want you to change their lives. So it was really awesome, like learning and being able to learn different skills.
Yeah, the application has an overlap, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. That because you have experience as a personal trainer, it directly translates to the feeling of being a PT in the sense that somebody is coming to you for a service, and then you have to lead the service, right? Because nobody's going to train themselves. I mean, they wouldn't be with you if they wanted to train themselves, right?
Yeah.
That is very interesting, actually.
It's honestly, I'm so grateful for the opportunity. Just because before as an aide, you're kind of following under like a physical therapist, of course. So here it's like, as a personal trainer, these people are like, okay, she knows what she's doing. She's going to be able to help me, and it just, yeah, it works hand in hand, I think.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Have you had an experience as a personal trainer where you felt like, wow, that was an amazing session, or like, I'm really, really helping this person achieve their goals? Have you had that as a personal trainer?
I have quite a few times actually, and even like um someone came in and she had just had a baby a couple months ago, and would say like maybe the baby was like 1.
Mm-hmm.
And she wanted to lose weight. She had like lots of uh she's also had pain and just like didn't move correctly. So when she came in, I did like my initial fitness consultation, and it's just like 5 movements that I get to see how they move. And uh I was able to just like help her engage like her glutes, her core. um uh
Huge.
yeah,
That's huge.
super huge. And they're
Yeah.
like, I've never felt these muscles before. And I didn't like to put my clients through like these crazy workouts, because that's not how people work. They're like going to get
Right.
scared. They're going to be like, what the heck? She's going to kill me. So it's like, you teach them how to just like turn on their glutes, and they're like, what is happening down there? Like, it's crazy.
I have muscles there. That's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was like my number one favorite thing to do, is like teach them how to do a squat or even like a dead bug. And I'm like, this is how you're supposed to be using your muscles. This could literally change your life, type of thing. And I'm like, I learned that from being an aide as well. So it's been awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's it kind of it's synergistic, isn't it? It's not opposing, it's synergistic. It kind of just is layers on top of layers on top of layers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet, actually. And good point about the leadership. I didn't even think about that, but that makes a lot of sense. And that also makes a lot of sense why some of the best PTs I know were personal trainers prior. Because they're already used to that feeling of dictating a thing, so that makes total sense. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Go ahead. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I could see it on the other way. Like if you were to like flip the switch, it's just also having like an open mind and like learning, like you don't know anything, like everything as a personal trainer. It's kind of like trial and error. You didn't have to go to 3 years of graduate school. Yeah, intense schooling. I think that's everything. Like you have those letters behind your name for a reason. So it's like, it's just being an active listener, an active learner too. So
yeah. That's a great point. That is a great point, and I completely understand. I completely agree with you as well. Here's my last question for you. How has the pandemic affected your schooling experience?
That's a good question, because I think even now it's happening all over
again.
Yeah,
because you started at the height of it, pretty much. A year ago, right?
So I started in September. So this was
wow.
Towards the end, the leg, like the end of it. So we actually got to go back to school full time, basically. But we definitely utilized like hybrid. So use like Zoom, and also going to campus and everything. But even talking to like the second years who were like 2020, that was their first year of grad school, it's like completely different, just because they didn't get to go to campus at all. Like
man.
At least 5 times the whole entire time. I'm like, how could you, like, for us, we take say we have like a break, we have like a 2-week like quarantine style, so everything is online, and just sitting here and like trying to absorb all the information when you have like the TV going on, your dog's barking, or like so many different distractions. It definitely takes a lot of like concentration, discipline.
Right.
But I definitely don't think, I think it's really hard to like learn what we are learning as physical therapy students only online. It's really hard.
Wow. Yeah. No, I can only imagine because I never experienced that. That's why I was curious how you guys deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like you said, 85% of our learning needs to be in person or is more beneficial in person because you need to touch people. You need to, you need to be able to learn what this feels like. You need to know how it is to interact with somebody that close, right?
Yeah.
And of course, like there is a surging movement of telehealth, understandably so, right? But as a physical therapist, part of that, just like being a personal trainer, is that the in-person experience of it, like that's very hard to replicate when you're not in the same room, right?
Yeah.
And you guys just learning, like you said, there's so many distractions, the fact that you're just sitting in your room, I would get so distracted. Like I would want to just go to the fridge real quick and just grab stuff, and I would miss so many things so quick,
Yeah.
So
you
I
can definitely miss a lot, just like taking a little break.
Yeah. So do you really feel the difference when you're at home, like when you're doing the hybrid situation type of deal? Like you just feel
yeah,
definitely.
I think even schools are trying to learn it as well because
What do you mean by that?
So like for example, in our anatomy course, we had we had palpations, we had complete anatomy, which was just like the online app, and we had models. So I think in the past, I don't think complete anatomy was as what is it, like a big factor, but here we're getting like tested specifically on what we see on the screen compared to like palpations or being able to actually
Right.
so it's just more they might not that they're expecting more, but it's just the different modalities that they're expecting. It's like how are you going to sit here for 4 hours and look at the screen and then also need to learn how to identify it on a model or do it this way. So it was just different. I think it's all a learning curve.
Yeah, no, I can see that because that essentially it adds an extra layer of like a filter. So that means that if I was talking to a patient in front of me, right? Because I learned through the screen, that means that my brain, what part is this, right? Okay, it registers. Oh, I'm looking at a certain body part. It goes through an anatomic program, and then you need to translate the anatomic program to the person that doesn't look like the actual anatomic program.
Yeah, exactly.
You see what I'm saying? So there's like a barrier. It's almost like a latency in between, like translating it from here to here, right? I was privileged enough that everything was my school was connected to a medical school, so we had a lot of bodies. So I saw every type of anatomical body that you've ever seen in person the whole time. So I felt like that was super beneficial to me, and that's kind of what I was wondering about people who are experiencing the pandemic as far in grad school, in PT school specifically, is that man, that must be a completely different way of thinking about it, right?
Yeah, I think even some people have suffered from it. It's just more, if that's not your way of learning, is being able to look at a screen and just like apply it and later on use it in a different modality, then it's like you have to be adaptable. So it's hard. Yeah.
Right. No, I completely agree with you. And it's just the approach has to be super different now, which is something I definitely did not experience. And it's really interesting to look at it. Anyway, do you have any other questions that you wanted to ask before we wrap up here?
No, I don't. This has been really awesome.
You've been really awesome. I appreciate your time, Ashley. I really do. And maybe in the future, like maybe we can do a yearly update. So like your second year, your second year, I'm going to ask you like similar questions, and in however many episodes we're down the line, we're going to be like, oh, hey, Ashley's back. Yeah, episode 17 or something like that. But we're going to see how you feel about that. Would that be okay with you if we invite you back to?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, awesome. The thing is, all the stuff that you talked about, I wanted to ask it because it can also help people who are planning on going to grad school and all that stuff, and just wanted to see the experiences that you had right now, because I haven't been in grad school in a while, and you're the one in it right now, so you have a lot more accurate information than I do. So
I'm going through it.
now you're just going through the fire. But again, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And so next time for the Keeping It Moving podcast, I don't know when it's going to come out yet, but we're going to try to work on it a little bit more. So thank you guys for joining us. On behalf of Ashley here, if you want to say bye.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
There you go. We're going to be signing off here. Thank you guys. Have a good day.
Okay. Bye.